So when people look at data or even data visualizations, charts, graphs, a lot of times they get overwhelmed or feel that it's very dry or theoretical. And I would like to challenge you to think of it in terms of stories. Whenever you see data or a data visualization, I'd like us to get in the habit of thinking, what are the stories? Whose stories are there? What other stories are there? How credible are the stories? But as soon as you think of data, I want you to pair that with stories. What's going on here? And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So here we have a graph, fairly boring, and there really aren't many stories behind it. We could guess. I mean, there's dates here, and we can kind of see an ebb and flow, so up and down. But it really doesn't tell us much stories. So we dig a little deeper, and we find out that these are mileage. These are how many miles I ran for every 2 week period. This is my personal running mileage and over a specific period of time. So we're starting to get a little more of a sense of stories here. And then we want to dive in deeper. I want you to look at where were times where things were high or things were low, or maybe it was trending down or trending up, or there was an outlier. And what are the stories behind those moments? So let me give you some examples. Here we see there was a couple pretty high ones early on, and then a pretty dramatic drop. What's the story behind that? Well, this is early September when this drop occurs, which probably makes sense since my job is a professor. And once school starts, I have a lot more responsibility. And my daughters also, I have to get them ready for school. So I had a lot less time in the mornings to go running. So that's why we see that drop off. That's the story behind this. What about this one? Here we have a quick drop and then a quick rebound. So something appears to have happened. Now we're looking down here. It's in December. And again, this is easier since I know the stories behind it. And in most cases, you're not going to be able to get them directly, but you will be able to sense trends and you can investigate and you can read other things like what happened during this time period. And you can start to get the stories. So in this particular case, my daughters, for whatever reason, started coming down to my bedroom early in the morning and kind of snuggling, and we would tell each other stories and stuff. It was really beautiful time, precious time, and so I didn't feel a need to go out running. I felt that that was more important than running. Then when their school started back up in January, they weren't as able to do that, so that was just kind of a short-lived period there where I didn't get out and run very much. What about a high trend? What about here where we see a whole bunch of consistently high values, more so than when we see anywhere else in the chart? What's the story behind that? What's going on? Well, as it turns out, this is our friend, the coronavirus here, that kicked in around March and lasted. I mean, it lasted indefinitely. I think I had a little um, extra time and buzz there early in the coronavirus time where I wasn't quite sure what to do with my time, so I went out running early in the morning a lot more. Um, and then this final one here, we have a dip. Uh, Again, this one's probably even stronger than this December dip. In early August, what would be happening at that time? Well, it turns out you probably wouldn't figure this one out at all from the time of year. So this is Weston Strickler. This is my college roommate at EMU. And then after we spent a couple years together in college, later we traveled the world together. We went through many adventures together. Maybe you've heard tell, but escaping from cannibals, that was with Wes. Living with a tribal family for 5 months, that was with Wes. Um, Running away from cobras, narrow, close calls with cobras, that was Wes. Um, I could go on and on the stories that I've had. And then even after those travels, We went down to the Amazon jungle together on a different journey. Um, had so many experiences with this guy who just seemed invincible and was my best friend. And then in early August, just passed away suddenly. Was riding a bus and just a silent heart attack, and he was gone like that. And that floored me. That was really hard for me to deal with. And I would just wake up in the mornings and not really feel like doing anything. For a couple weeks. And that's where the low point, man. That's the story behind this low point. And then I think I don't really know the stages of grief well, but something happened in me, and I felt if this could happen to Wes, this could happen to me, and I want to really go out there and really seize the day, carpe diem kind of thing. And that's where you see that rebounding my morning runs. So these are an example of the stories behind the data. Again, any data you see, any data visualization, there are stories behind there. There's many stories, and I want you to start digging for those stories because that's what really makes the numbers comes alive. That's why I love this, and that's why this could be much more meaningful to your life rather than just calculating an average or formulas or all these potentially boring areas of statistics. The reason why they can be valuable is because of the stories and what the stories mean.